can you not only survive this, but turn this pain into power, transmute it as the light worker that you are born to be. When a woman truly gets in touch with her pain, her rage, her passion, that's when she transmutes it into creativity and this like wild nature and all of these incredible things that we can birth. A bad bitch takes charge of her body, her boundaries, and her bank account. All right, bad bitches, we are back, and it is a new era. I'm always talking about leveling up and becoming the biggest, baddest, most unapologetic version of you. And I'm feeling a new energy, bigger, better than ever. And I'm here today with my friend Laura, who I met at the Family Office Conference in Beverly Hills. And we are recording this episode in Beverly Hills, where I am going to be making a big life change and moving here, where I never thought I would be coming to LA. I've always been a hardcore New Yorker and said that my soul lives in New York. But as you all know, recently I've moved to Miami and then to Cayman Islands, and now I'm a married woman. And I never thought I'd say that either. And I also never thought I'd say I'd be potentially living in LA. So here I am, and we're starting that journey. So I thought, what better way than to just share all the things that I've been going through, the internal, the external changes, the spiritual and emotional stuff that's really gone on behind the scenes.
I'm super excited to be here. I know we just met not that long ago, but it feels like there's a kindred spirit here. You're coming to my stomping grounds in LA. Can't wait to have you experience it for its finest and everything, and food related as well. But yeah, I'm excited. I think from the very first moment that we met, I sensed this electricity that it felt like we had been friends for a really long time. And so hearing about your journey, hearing about how you got to where you were, where you've been, and the different phases of where you've been has gotten me super interested. And I know that everyone who's read your book, they know a little bit about you, but just to recap a little bit, can you share your journey and how you got where you are right now?
So it's all about breaking free from good girl brainwashing and becoming the bad bitch version of you. So I grew up and I've always been this introverted, self-doubting, insecure, perfectionist good girl. And I think that I was not born that way, but certainly early on brainwashed into that, a combination of growing up in a very white neighborhood as the only Asian girl and being teased early on about my Chinese accent, which I got from my parents, being different, feeling like I didn't belong, and realizing that I could prove myself through being really good and being a perfect good girl. So that meant getting really good grades. That meant becoming a U.S. national champion, Hall of Fame gymnast, winning gold medals, and pleasing my family, my own internal expectations, and just proving through my hard work that I was worthy. And that chip on my shoulder of really feeling like I was worthless unless I achieved things, unless I got the good grades, I think that's followed me through my life in terms of just feeling not good enough, or having this internal system that a lot of good girls have, this narrative of feeling like you're not good enough, feeling like you're not smart enough, feeling like you're not pretty enough, skinny enough,
just not enough,
brave enough, overall just not enough, and that there's always something about yourself that you need to change. And so that followed me into my career, going into Wall Street and becoming a hedge fund analyst in a very male-dominated industry. It followed me into Silicon Valley as an entrepreneur, fundraising, and as many women experience, always feeling like you have to fight this battle, that you have to prove yourself in a very male-dominated system to be taken seriously as a serious businesswoman. And so I learned to conform for a bit, at least for a bit, like just all of us, for a little bit of time, that following the rules and being a good girl would get you a good job. But as I learned really quickly, the good girl gets the coffee and the bad bitch gets the bag. And
Love
if
that.
you want to be a leader, you have to go from good girl to bad bitch. And the real question for me was, how do I become her? How do I become that version of me that I can't even see in this moment, who's unapologetically confident and can walk into the room, know her value, own her worth, speak with confidence and assuredness, and not doubt herself at all. And that was also a very long journey. So one of the anecdotes I share in my book is walking into my first investor event and being overlooked as the assistant, even though I was a CEO, and feeling so embarrassed, so ashamed, and feeling like I had done something wrong to be mistaken as an assistant when I was the CEO. And like many women, I would berate myself and I'd think, like, what did I do wrong? You know, what's wrong with me? And I remember one of those times when I just decided, you know what, I'm going to take my power back, because I can't control what other people think of me, but I can control the energy with which I walk into the room. And maybe there was a part of me that was walking into the room with insecurity and self-doubt and small, insecure, good girl energy.
Right.
And I started picturing myself walking into rooms with bad bitch energy and how that would be different, and being really honest with myself about, was I really showing up in the best, most assured, confident version of myself? And the biggest shift in terms of my mindset really came from realizing that this good girl version of me that I had grown up with, that was insecure, people-pleasing, perfectionist, which I thought was my true authentic self, was actually not me. That was just a story that I had been brainwashed with to believe that that insecure version of myself was me, when in reality, I realized that the most authentic version of me is the most powerful version, is the most confident, is the one that walks into the room and knows who the fuck she is. And to get out of those voices in your head, which you think are yours but are not actually yours, that was really the process of distilling down whose voices belong to me and whose voices do not, because my most authentic self would never be critical of me. She would never put me down. She would never say all these mean things to me. That doesn't sound like my own voice, even though I've been brainwashed to believe that that's my voice. And so learning how to reprogram my mind, like literally unbrainwashing and changing the narrative the other way in terms of how I speak to myself, that was the challenging part. And that's the real work. The real work is showing up every morning, looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, you're a bad bitch. I love your ass. I love your face. I love your hair. Your body is banging and you're so awesome. And saying all these things to yourself versus what women usually do, which is, look at that one gray hair. Look at that pimple. Look at that wrinkle. Oh my God, I need to lose some weight. All those negative flaws that you focus on, that's the voice of a multi-trillion-dollar, weight loss and beauty industry that's trying to make you feel insecure, and primarily created by the male gaze.
Yes.
So in a world that feeds off your insecurity, loving yourself is an act of rebellion. So all of this entire journey of going from good girl to bad bitch, discovering who I am, just like really being grounded in my confidence, I now realize it's just a coming home to yourself. It's a remembrance of who you are as a divine, powerful woman who can just create life on earth. And we're so powerful when we remember that we are innately deserving of self-love, self-respect, self-trust, self-belief, and that coming home to yourself, that remembrance that you deserve it, is really the root of your power as a woman.
I think that message is so powerful, and I think that more women than we think actually need to hear that. I'm one of them. But I think that it is very rare to find someone who is waking up every day saying, pointing out all the positive things about themselves and actually talking themselves up. It's so easy to fall into just pointing out all the negative and telling yourself you don't deserve it, or just thinking that that's like this, just like the sky is blue, that I don't deserve it, right? Mm-hmm. So how did you begin the work for yourself? Because I think a lot of people can benefit, a lot of women can benefit from hearing just what was the first thing that you did that stepped in the right direction for you?
It was asking myself the one key question: who is the most powerful and authentic version of me? Okay. And I would journal on that over and over again. I would try to visualize that version of myself. And even though she felt so far away, it was like projecting out this vision of the 2.0 or 3.0 version of me. And I would picture how she walked, how she dressed, how she spoke to herself, how she felt. And I would write all of that down. And then I would notice in my day-to-day life ways in which there were discrepancies. And this version of me, the bad bitch version of me, you know, she takes care of herself. She says these things to herself in the mirror. She listens to this kind of music. She walks into the room with this kind of energy. She interacts with people this way. She responds to criticism this way. She responds to compliments this way. And a lot of times it's, first of all, it's your relationship to yourself. And second of all, it's your relationship to your environment and the external world and other people. So I would also think about, maybe there are times when I feel anxious or resentful or jealous. And what are those triggers for me? And would that bad bitch version of me, would she feel that way? Or would she even be bothered by certain things? Right. Where she'd be like, no, my time is my most valuable asset, and I'm not going to bother with this. Or if someone was rude to her or condescending to her, would she allow that to affect her, or would she respond in a more queenly manner?
Love it. Okay. How long would you say that it's, because obviously you've gone through the whole transformation and like you really are like the bad bitch yourself. And so how do you feel, or even with everyday scenarios, how do you, I guess, do you still get shaken by certain scenarios? And how quickly can you respond and, I guess, in the programming that you've reprogrammed yourself in, how quickly can you actually respond to that? And does it still affect you?
Yeah, absolutely. I still get shaken. And one of the events that I've had to heal from was my abusive ex, who I broke up with in 2022 of December, which a lot of people didn't know, because on the outside, I was a strong, independent, badass bitch. And in the background, I was dealing with a toxic narcissist who was verbally, emotionally, and other ways abusive. And he really wore down my confidence. And so it took me about 1.5 years, almost 2 years, to fully recover from that. And recovering primarily from an energetic standpoint in terms of having strong energetic boundaries, because part of what I had gained before I had fallen into that relationship was I had this unshakable confidence in myself. Like, people would say things to me and I'd be like, meh, don't care about their opinion. Right. Of course, relationships always are a mirror to you. And I realized there was still some shakiness in me. Yeah. And after that relationship, there was a period in which I was very easily affected by a critical comment here or a doubting comment there. And for example, I was actually at a family office conference about 1 year ago, and there was a woman who said to me, you know, don't you think you'd alienate women like me with such an aggressive brand? Really? Or don't you think you should tone down your brand, because you could reach so many more women if you just weren't like that? Oh my goodness. And this was a woman who had wealth. She was established, but she was more conservative and older. Just probably needs the breaking free of good girl brainwashing the most.
The most, yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I actually thought about it, and it knocked me off my game for about 2 weeks because I thought maybe she's right. Maybe I do need to tone it down. Maybe I do need to be less assertive. Maybe I do need to have a tamer brand. And it took me a few weeks to get out of that. But when I finally realized that this was just a reflection of her own insecurity.
Totally.
It's a reflection of her own inability to be fully expressed as a bad bitch.
Yes.
And when I started to see that, I started to think about all the other people in the past who had been triggered, men and women. For both men and women who have been triggered, it's primarily because it's just a reflection of their own self-judgment. And the biggest unlock for me in terms of learning how to not take those external criticisms seriously was seeing how much of someone's comment is literally a mirror to how they judge themselves. And a recent example of something that I was really proud of and that I realized I had arrived even more so to this version of me.
Listen, and this is going to be good. I'm excited.
On LinkedIn, a few months back, I posted a video about the 5 inspiring Fortune 500 female CEOs to watch. Okay. And it was motivating, it was uplifting. And in that video, I was wearing this super hot purple Hervé Leger dress. And there was a lot of comments like, oh my God, this is awesome. Thank you, thank you. And then there was this one man.
Surprise, surprise.
This one man who commented, your outfit says everything about you. Pathetic. And I looked at that comment and didn't react. I didn't feel any sort of visceral reaction, but the first thing I felt was curiosity. So I clicked into this man's profile, and first of all, he's 3rd plus degree. I have no clue who this is. And no judgment. However,
it's okay. It's a safe space here. This is a safe space.
I just wanted to understand his background, and he was not that successful. He had clearly not achieved that much in his life and was in Alabama or something like that and looked like he worked on a tractor field. Who knows?
But it'd be clearly not able to get someone who looks like you and projecting saying those words to you.
Exactly. And so I thought to myself, I don't even have the word pathetic in my vocabulary. I don't call myself pathetic. Right. I don't call other people pathetic. So the only person who's going to use the word pathetic is someone who has it regularly in their vocabulary. Wow, this man must feel so pathetic himself that he needs to spend the time to find a random woman on LinkedIn of all places, take the time to write a nasty comment to make himself feel better. And in that moment, all I could feel was compassion. I feel compassion for this man who feels so bad about himself that this is the only way that he feels he can get attention from a bad bitch.
Right. I mean, that's really, I think that's a really cool point where you can actually pivot instead of feeling the things that normal people would feel.
Yeah.
You're just like, wow, you realize that this is not a reflection of you, it's a reflection of him. And you almost feel sorry for them that that's all they've been able to feel or that's all they're feeling.
Yeah. And so I just responded. All I said was, the weight of your opinion is null. And that's it, which is the truth, right?
Yeah.
And no additional emotion, no additional anything else. But I felt proud that that's how far I had come, that I could get a comment like that filled with so much animosity that it just bounced off of me. And all of this work that I've done, and when I say that the work, I mean the inner work, but also the external actions and risks I've taken on the outside, which include posting on social media, posting on LinkedIn, a so-called professional site that expects women to be professional and appropriate, and posting these bad bitch photos of me, these unapologetic posts, and posting your authentic self, your most powerful self, is an act of self-love. And it almost feels like every time you post it, there's that fear when you are not conforming that someone's going to like say something bad. And those words can feel like bullets, right? Like you are literally a pioneer on the front lines and you're putting yourself out there fully exposed when you are bucking the status quo. And it's like you're bracing for bullets. And the thing is, I've realized that the more I've put myself out there, the stronger my armor and self-protection has become. And when I say self-protection, I mean an armor of self-love. In that the more I put it out there, the more I become comfortable with that most powerful version of me. And the more I get these comments of, well, first of all, I'm getting less and less of those comments. And second of all, when they come, you're like, oh, I'm protected by my own self-love, and these are my boundaries. And that, I think, is the greatest gift that you get from this work of like having the courage and the bravery to put your most authentic self out there.
I mean, I think that's great. I think that more of us needs the more of this, the coat, the armor. I think it sounds like you've come a very long way. And I think every time you get that, arrow or bullet feeling, it probably is a reminder of the brainwashing that you've been talking about, and that you want to be quicker and quicker to wash it away and just to kind of keep it at bay.
Yeah.
Right. So,
and I now see it as a blessing when I do find myself affected, because it points out the good girl wound that still needs to be healed. Mm-hmm. So I've never talked about this before, but one of the biggest things that my ex loved to do was to slut shame me. Mm-hmm. Especially at the end. He found that was a wound for me. And the moment he found that it was a wound, he applied the greatest weapon, which is shame. And shame is the lowest frequency of energy. And he realized that he could shame me through verbal abuse and call me a slut and call me all these other words and say things like, I would never have you as a mother of my children, at the same time while, abusing me in bed. And it was like this twisted gaslighting that I got so confused, because I did have a wound from that and that bullying from college. And now coming out of it, I realize like that's another part of my brand that I really worked to embrace, which was my own sexual power as a woman, being sexually empowered, because we have so many narratives that tell women that you need to be a virgin, you need to be prude, you need to be appropriate, otherwise you're a dirty slut and a whore and whatever. And like, don't wear, inappropriate things, because then you'll distract men in the workplace. And you realize it's not about you. It's actually, the onus is on the guys to get their mind out of the gutter and not objectify women.
Exactly. It sounds like you've been through a lot, and that's actually every part of your life. It sounds like you've been through all these different phases, all these different evolutions of yourself to get you where you are based on your real life experiences. I mean, you hear them all and you write about them. You share a lot of them in your book. Which one would you say is like the most impactful one that maybe people don't know? Maybe there's one that you haven't shared in the book.
Like a moment?
Yeah.
I feel that healing from the abuse in my last relationship was one of the biggest learning opportunities that I had.
Wow.
And after I broke it off, I moved to Miami. So that was actually the impetus for me leaving New York, because I felt so claustrophobic and the energy was just in the air and I knew I had to leave, that I asked the universe, why did I go through this? Like, why did you put me through this? And I knew that there had to be a reason why I was subjected to that, but I didn't know what it was. And I really, really intentionally healed and created that space for myself to look inwards. And I replayed every second of that relationship, no matter how painful it was. And I would watch it like a movie in my head of, when he said these things, did he really mean it? And why did I react that way? And then blaming myself for staying and not catching the red flags. And I had to learn how to get myself out of that loop of self-blame, self-shame, and feeling guilty and just berating myself for being so stupid that I had stayed in that relationship. And then at the same time, as many victims of abuse know, you're like, but did I love him? Like, what? It's right. You're so confused, right? Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, I was doing all of this while I was prepping for the launch of my book. So I was doing my photo shoot, like being the bad bitch out there, and also internally just trying to grapple with, who am I? Like, was I even ever a bad bitch, or was I ever even this, or is the true me again everything that he's said about me? Yeah. And that was the process that really began my connection to spirituality. Because I don't have a religion, and I've never had a religion, and I didn't have any sort of relationship with God. And I had really what I had felt was, as I write in the Bad Bitch Business Bible, that a lot of Western religion is actually created to shame and guilt, and has been really detrimental to women and our own sense of autonomy and empowerment, because it's been so guilt and shame ridden. So through that process of looking inward, I remember the moment when I was reflecting on the abuse, and I just had this aha moment when I realized, wow, I'm so grateful I went through this. Because I realized that this next level of power that I was going to unlock, and I felt it was going to be so much bigger and so much more grounded in true confidence, because the universe had sent that abusive man into my life to show me the areas, the wounds that I still had to heal. And it was like this glaring spotlight, and having someone who's so close to your heart weaponize all of your insecurities and vulnerabilities towards you. And it was a test from the universe of, can you not only survive this, but turn this pain into power, transmute it as the light worker that you are born to be. And I remember that there was once someone had told me that I was a light worker, and I didn't understand what being a light worker meant. But in that moment, as I was reflecting on all of the darkness that I'd been through, I was like, oh my God, I know how to take this darkness and literally through my body turn it into like a prism of light and beauty and strength. And not only that, I'm going to use this story and my voice to uplift other women who feel like they've been a victim of this, because we know it's so prevalent.
It's everywhere, and everyone feels trapped. They all feel like they can't, there's not a solution. They feel victimized. They're doomed. So I think you sharing, I'm really grateful that you're super open and sharing, because not a lot of women are, they're not vulnerable, but through your vulnerability, I think it's going to help just women feel more comfortable with sharing theirs and maybe saying it out loud, and also helping them to kind of transform and figure out what does that mean for them, and what is the universe trying to put in front of them, and how it's going to sharpen them to be their best versions of themselves. Now, I know you have a new man in your life, and you just got married. So I want to know how close in time, and was it enough time after the abuse from your ex to such a different person in the man in your life now? What was that timeline like, and how did it allow you to see with a clear, fresh pair of eyes, still being grounded in your true self?
Yeah. My husband is incredible. He's the most supportive, uplifting, just generous, kind, thoughtful, great listener guy there is. And I probably would never have been attracted to him had I not been through what
Sometimes you got to go through the shit to get to
Yeah. And he knows this, which is there are things about him that I wouldn't even be able to appreciate without having gone through what I had gone through before. Because there were even things that he didn't do, ways he didn't react that I noticed. Like with my ex, I would I would say something that I think would just be totally normal. Like, I need to work on my book, right. And I need some space for myself.
Right.
And he would get upset or controlling or jealous. And my husband he's like, oh, that's great, honey.
But it sticks out to you.
Yeah, and
you're
it
like,
sticks
how
out.
come you're not saying something that I can feel like an arrow or something?
Yeah, I was like bracing for a reaction, and he's just like, oh, that's wonderful. And I'm like, oh.
You're like, what?
So there was nothing wrong with me for, and I think that sort of juxtaposition is really helpful. But going back to your question of, you know, how did it start and really like the healing process, what I did commit to, I said I was going to be celibate for a while, you know, at least 6 months, because I didn't want another man's energy inside of me. And I also wanted enough time for my ex's energy to leave my body. And what I had learned from that relationship was also, you don't know a man until you've seen a man for at least 6 months, because that mask always slips off at around 6 months. And so I put I wouldn't say I put my guard up, but I became much more intentional about my observation and data gathering in the earliest stages of dating.
Smart.
And I also raised my standards a lot.
As you should.
Which is kind of counterintuitive, because a lot of times when a woman comes out of like a really bad relationship in which they were treated badly, it's almost like that other guy like wore down her standards. Right. Whereas in this case, I was like, never fucking again. And I raised them. I realized the queen that I am and that I deserved a king. And I also wrote down what I wanted from this guy. And it wasn't your typical list, like 6'5", whatever, works in investment banking, which my ex did, and that was horrible. Never again.
There were signs. Yeah.
But he makes me feel lighter. He makes me laugh. He puts a smile on my face. He makes me feel these ways. And it was more about like the acts of service and how I felt in the relationship. So instead of focusing, as most people do, on like the external list about that man, it was how this man uplifts me, makes me feel, makes my life easier. So it was like all about me. Yeah, I mean, which happy wife, happy life. And it's so true.
100%.
So I became unapologetic about what I liked. I like going out to nice dinners. I like feeling like a lady and being picked up. You know, I like these things. I like a man who uses complete sentences in text and knows how to use a question mark. You know, like
or the difference between there and there.
Exactly. And I like a man who listens to me and will.
It's funny that I hear that, and I mean, we're all guilty of it. Yeah. I've been through that where my standards were very low before, but these are all things that should be.
Yeah, they're basic.
That you're listing off that is like, oh my gosh, it should be amazing. But men, I mean, so you found a really special one that makes you, highlights you, makes you feel how you know that you should feel and how you want to feel. Yeah.
And I also wrote down things that are non-negotiables.
Okay.
In terms of, he can't be a jealous guy. And this is a really interesting one because I think a lot of women, this is that toxic, like possessive thing where it's like, no, I want a man who's like going to be really possessive of me and, you know, not like protect me. And I'm like, having gone through that, that's a controlling man. Especially if you are a woman who likes to express herself, like likes to feel beautiful and go out with her girls. You can't be with a man who's possessive and controlling. And one thing my ex loved to do was always shame me for looking hot. Because he'd say things like, if other men look at you and they can see you, what's left for me?
Wow, that sounds like someone super insecure.
I know.
Insecure.
I know. I see it now, but back then it was like, oh, I'm so sorry. The apologetic thing. Yeah, and so he can't be controlling, he can't be possessive, he can't be jealous, he can't be, feel any sort of resentment when I'm in the spotlight. Because I am the type of person who is building a brand that is forward-facing, and he showed me, my husband showed me early on that he was really secure in himself, that when I had my book launch in Croatia, he was there as my general assistant and social media guy and my Instagram photographer, and he like loved it. And he was there, handing out books and just getting B-roll. And he would introduce himself. He's like, oh, I'm just Lisa's assistant. And so
I love that.
Yeah. So like the sense of confidence and grounded security, I found really sexy. And then also the supportiveness of women altogether. So generosity was huge, just kindness and a good heart. No games. I used to love the games.
We all did.
Yeah.
We all loved the drama at one point.
And sometimes I caused drama just to see how he'd react. But overall, I think it's really a man who can fully hold space for all areas of your multidimensionality, your entire emotional range. And I say that a man is like the riverbank. He's there to be sturdy, and like ground, and the woman's the flowing, rushing water, and she's also the rain and the sun and the sky and like the wild woman, right? Like Mother Nature. And this is something that I'd love to talk more about, which is also the divine feminine and what that really looks like.
Please go in further to that.
So part of this reconnection to my spirituality is a reconnection to divine feminine power. And I realized that, first of all, there's a divine plan for everything, which is part of this gratitude around everything that I'd been through of the divine mother, Mother Nature, the universe, whatever you want to call it or her. It's nothing in your life is a mistake. Every single perceived failure or mistake that you've made was meant to be. And the universe always has your back.
I
Truly.
think knowing that actually gives you a sense of peace
And freedom.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, when you know that the universe always has your back, and it was in a visceral sense, which is I looked back at the time that I missed the Olympics by 0.25 tenths of a point. And I berated myself for at least a decade. I felt guilty. I still felt ashamed. I still felt pained about that for over a decade. And when I came to terms with the fact that there's a divine plan for everything, I felt for the first time in my life, wow, I really went through that. The universe really had to do that because it knew I had to develop the strength and the power to serve my real purpose. Right. And I would not be the woman that I am today had I not gone through that identity-shattering moment of missing the Olympics. I wouldn't have been forced to do the inner work. In the same way how going through that abusive relationship, I wouldn't have been forced to look at those remaining good girl wounds because I needed someone so close to my heart to like twist the dagger for me to be like, okay, here's what we have to do to heal. Yeah. And the divine feminine is all of the aspects of us that ironically have been shamed and suppressed and decimated through our patriarchal culture. And that starts with emotional power. So a woman has been called crazy, she's overdramatic, she's off her rocker. They're like, she's on her period. Oh my God, she's so emotional. We've been taught that we need to act very proper and very composed. And I found liberation through expressing my pain, through getting in touch with my rage, my anger. And a lot of times we're taught we're not allowed to be angry. We're not allowed to feel rage. Right. And when I talked about transmuting your pain into power, when a woman truly gets in touch with her pain, her rage, her passion, that's when she transmutes it into creativity and this like wild nature and all of these incredible things that we can birth. Right. And when we suppress that emotional range, we're like, oh, you have to like act prim and proper within these boundaries versus like, actually, I'm just going to express like whatever I want to express. Right. I want to cry. I want to laugh. I want to have joy. I want to be angry. Like I want to be sad and frustrated. And if you allow yourself to really express that entire emotional range without feeling guilt and say, this is just my emotion. This is just like Mother Nature has times when she's like, torrential rainpour and then it's sunny and rainbows. Right, that's one part of the divine feminine power. So there's 4 pillars. So the first pillar is that emotional power. The second pillar is her sexual power.
Yeah.
And no surprise there, that is where women have been shamed for their, again, we've talked about being a slut, a whore, a cunt, like all these like really, really charged, negatively charged words to make a woman feel bad about herself. And it's interesting because we're allowed to be objectified in media by the male gaze, but the moment a woman says, no, I'm going to reclaim my power for myself because I feel beautiful and sexy and I want to wear it and I want to show it online and I want to, take a photo shoot in the boudoir, it's like, oh my God, who does she think she is?
It's wild.
And so when you reclaim that sexual power and you're like, I know that I can be seductive. I know that men can't control themselves when I own it. And you don't allow those negative voices being like, oh, she's such a slut or whatever. The reason it's been shamed is because it's so powerful. It's literally, a woman's sexual power has started wars. It's like that's how Cleopatra, came in and she seduced Julius Caesar, and she went from, I had the Egyptian Empire, and now I have the Roman Empire, and then Mark Antony, and that's why all these other little men were so pissed off.
Because it started from way back.
It started way back, yeah.
Yes.
And that's, I think it's like, Western civilization started to see like, oh, wow, this woman's power, this sort of like unexplainable, sexual, divine, emotional, like raw, feminine power is so powerful that it can seduce the emperors of our empire. Like how horrible. We need to figure out a way to crush it.
To suppress,
shame. And that's carried over to today, very much so, in terms of even we're 2025 and there's still that lingering shame. And that also is between the sexual power and the emotional power, there's the suppression of women's voices, right? If you're not allowed to fully express your body, if you're not allowed to fully express your emotions, you start to lose your voice.
Right.
And that is also then tied to the witch wound. And the witch wound, we can think back to the Salem witch trials, but long before that, where a woman is punished for having an opinion, literally burned at the stake, drowned in the river, hanged. And why? Because she was smart. She was bold. She was intellectual, had an opinion, and she was willing to speak up. And a lot of women have a blocked throat chakra because there's still that witch wound of, if I say my truth, I will be destroyed. I will be killed. It is that present in our bodies, the fear of being ostracized. If you speak your truth, stand in your truth, and own it unapologetically. And that's why there's so much visibility fear, even like when we want to share our words on social, when we want to put a post up, we're like, oh, what are people going to think? What if I get ostracized?
It gets so loud, I think, when people want to actually trust their gut reaction and to be bold and like you said, post on social media, use certain words, have certain photos or whatever. There's that moment where there's always that hesitation. And I think that's tied exactly to what you're talking about.
Yeah. The third one is financial power. And
get into the good stuff.
We can't talk about power and freedom without talking about financial power. And another thing women have been guilted about. Oh, she's so greedy. Oh, she's a gold digger. Oh, she's selfish. And so many women can't even say, I want to be wealthy. I want to be unapologetically wealthy. Why? Oh, because I have to donate to philanthropy. It's like you have to justify why you want to be wealthy and abundant because you have to immediately have a nonprofit or something else like that. Versus women by nature, when we have wealth and abundance, we want to spread it. We create impactful companies. Like that's just one and the same. And we feel like we have to do this additional layer of justification of, oh, no, the money's not for me. It's for my family. It's for my friends. It's for the environment. It's for everybody else. It's not because I actually, want a massage,
right?
Or I want like nice clothes,
or self-care for myself. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's that guilt of saying, I want that money because I want to feel good, period. I want to have freedom.
Or that you deserve, or that I deserve it.
Yeah, I worked hard, I deserve it, and I want to have the freedom to make my own choices, and I don't want to have to worry about money. And I mean, from a very fundamental layer, having money allows you to leave bad situations. I had this thought when I kicked my ex out of my apartment in a very bad bitch manner.
That's a part two. We need to hear.
Yes.
We need to hear
the full story. And I kicked him out of my apartment, and I had that moment of thinking, well, first of all, it was, you do not disrespect me like that under my roof in my apartment. Mm-hmm. And I thought, man, if this was even like the 1950s and women couldn't even like own their own property or like have true jobs, I wouldn't be able to kick him out. Like the fact that that was my place because I had my money gave me that freedom to leave. And there are so many women who in the past or even now, because they don't have that financial power, are stuck in abusive, bad situations with men who are taking advantage of the fact that the woman doesn't have the financial power. Interestingly, the last thing that my ex had said before we broke up, he was about to dig into it. He said, I know everything about you, but we've never actually shared bank accounts. So he knew that the last thing that he needed to do was to take control of my finances, and he would have everything because he had already worn down my self-confidence. He had gotten into my emotional mind. He had made me feel ashamed about my sexuality. He had started isolating me from my friends and family, and he just needed the finances.
And you said, obviously.
I said, maybe not now. And thankfully I did that. But yeah, so part of this and why I have a chapter in the Bad Bitch Business Bible called A Bad Bitch Loves Money is getting rid of those limiting financial beliefs that say I don't deserve it, or I can't ask for more money, or I feel gross saying that I want to be rich, or whatever twisted narrative that you have been brainwashed with as it comes to money, and being able to reclaim that and saying, money is a source of power for me. And it's a source of power where I can use it for my own freedom, to liberate others, to create impact on this earth. Because the more money that women have, the more good we also can do for ourselves, for our children, and for our communities.
Right. I mean, I still feel like, like if you can treat yourself well and you can do self-care and you can, it's like, in the plane, like they secure your mask before you can help others. Like that's what millions of women are not doing.
Yeah.
By not, being as unapologetic. So.
Yeah. The last pillar, and this is a pillar that ties it all together, which I've most recently encountered, is spiritual power.
Okay.
And this is where women have been made fun of for, oh, she's so woo-woo. Why does she believe in these things? Oh, it's just energy, manifestation, vibes. Like a lot of serious business women who are like very in their masculine, rational, who don't believe in things like manifestation or energy, because they're like, well, there's no data, or men making fun of women for believing in zodiacs or any sort of human design or anything, right? They'll make fun of us even though they have crypto projects like pudgy penguins and bored apes and squiggly lines.
Yes.
Yeah. And they're like, yes, this is a real currency, these meme coins.
Okay.
But your human design that's been thousands and thousands of years of research, that doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense because women believe in it. We have to tear it down.
Yeah. And this is the same thing when we talk about feminine intuition and how little respect feminine intuition has been given. And how many times women say, but my gut, if I only listen to myself, my intuition, my gut. Yeah. feminine intuition isn't just feminine. It is literally intelligence. It is point blank intelligence, just as much as a data set is intelligence. Yeah. Because that is actually honed wisdom over time that has been passed on from generations of women, that is naturally innate within us. And we gather that intuition from energy, from the feelings that we get, from the emotions, from the things that we feel in our body that we can't explain. And part of this coming back to the divine feminine, the spirituality, was, when you trust the universe and you say the universe always has my back, there's always a divine plan, what you're also doing is you're trusting yourself. You're saying there is no wrong decision, because no matter what decision I make, it's going to be the right one. Either I'm going to learn and the universe is going to show me why I made that decision, or I'm going to go down this path that's going to open tons of doors. But regardless, you just keep going and you keep trusting and keep believing. And I think that successful women tend to really be in touch with their spiritual core. Like, I know that there's something out there, like there's something about the collective energy that I can draw upon, and I can manifest and create my own reality. I believe in doing good and that amplifying, 3 times over, and that there's such a thing as karma. And there's, I'm going to believe in my ancestors are here protecting me. I believe that the spirits are around me and that everything's helping and conspiring to create this life for me and to also have purpose and to be on my path. And so all of that, where it's like there's something greater at play and you are part of a greater cosmic conversation and path and strategy, and you just show up every single day and say, surrender. I think the surrendering was a big part. Like, I went through this path of saying, like, I surrender to the Divine Mother. I surrender to the universe. Like, show me what I need to learn and who I am meant to become. And that trust, I think that truly that trust is the liberation of, I don't need to be indecisive. I don't need to be a perfectionist. I don't need to control. Which a lot of times we think is being responsible, but it's actually part of that good girl brainwashing too, which is like that grounded spiritual feminine power that you have that is connected with Mother Nature.
That feels so positive. Like that just, I think it, for me, just hearing that right now, it breathes words that come to mind are hope, positivity, things that could put a smile on any girl's face. And something that you were talking about, I'm just kind of thinking out loud, for the younger generation. I have kids. I have 2 girls.
Yeah.
And how do you think that mothers out there who maybe don't necessarily possess they are heavily brainwashed, how do they still instill in their, the upcoming generations, especially if they have daughters, like how do they help the daughter, their kids grow up in a healthier environment for themselves so that they don't have to go back and do all this crazy work, right?
Yeah. Every child will pick up energy from their mother and their father. Okay. And so the number one thing for every mother is to look at yourself, to look in the mirror and say, what are those things that I'm still saying to myself that I would hate for my daughter to say about herself? If you are looking in the mirror and saying, ugh, I hate myself, I hate my body, I hate what I do, you might not say those words out loud and your daughter may not hear it, but she will feel it. That energy that you carry will bring over to your daughter. And one experience that I had as I was thinking through healing my mother wound was I reflected back on my mother and how when I was younger, I used to think that my mother was the weaker one because it was my dad who was the breadwinner and I respected him and he was strong and he was ambitious. And growing up now, I see how strong she was, right? She was the core that held us together. She cleaned up everyone's mess and just in silence, right? Never called any attention to herself and just was that like silent source of strength and sacrificed so much of herself to be that for us. And when I look at what happened in some of my bad relationships, whether business relationships or personal relationships, I ended up repeating the pattern of self-sacrifice.
Oh gosh, that cuts deep. That's, I think a lot of people.
The silently cleaning up people's mess, trying to help, at my own detriment. And I thought I was taking a different path, but I picked those tendencies up. But I recognized her even energetically for, wow, she was the strong one. Like she really did everything she could to make us mentally stable and, like financially stable and everything and feel loved. But maybe what she needed to do was to love herself more. And in modeling that self-love, maybe that core, wouldn't have taken me so long to develop this. Or it wouldn't have
penetrated so deep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I see it's like if I don't have children yet, but me becoming this version of myself where it's like the core of self-love is strong, self-confidence, the boundaries are there, like no tolerance of disrespect. Like that's what the kid's going to pick up on, right? Like whether it's a daughter or a son in terms of how a son respects women or what he looks up to. And I realized like that was really important in terms of the partner I chose. Like bringing like my husband in, I started looking at, is this the kind of father I would want for my kids? Like, how does he treat women? Like, how would that translate onto my daughter? How does he have toxic masculinity? How would that translate onto a son? And so all of these things where I really thought, I'm going to break the chains of this. And so when I recognized that pattern that I had in myself and that I traced all the way back to, I'm like, is that from my mom? Is that from my mom's mom? Is that from my mom's mom's mom? And like, how far back did that go? I don't even know. But I said to myself, I am going to be the one who breaks the chains.
It ends here.
It ends here. As part of that, the healing of the sisterhood wound. Because I touched on this briefly, which is like the sisterhood wound shows up in jealousy and competition and comparison. And it's an internal thing, right? We feel it when we feel that jealousy or we compare ourselves to another woman. And I grew up in a gymnastics forum where it was literally a zero-sum competition. If I win, you lose, one gold medal. And so my friends were my competitors. And I think social media and also our system pits women against each other because we're in scarcity mode. When you do the work of becoming the self that you want to be, the bad bitch you want to be, part of that liberation is no one can be me and no one can be you. And that's a gift. Yeah. Because I don't need to be in competition with anyone else because no one can quite do it like me and no one can quite do it like you and no one can quite do it like her. Like every one of us has different superpowers and a different combination of those. And every time I felt that prick of jealousy, I would again examine in myself, what does that say about ways in which I am not showing up as the biggest, most authentic version of me? Because I am seeing her do that, which shows me what I'm not doing. And it's showing up as jealousy because I am not taking action on the thing that I want.
But she is.
But she is. And so rather than, again, sitting in that kind of low frequency energy of jealousy and comparison, that's another type of light work. How do I transform that emotion into creativity or motivation or
just movement or action?
Yeah. So I think all that to say is, when you step into your divine feminine power and you're like, I reclaim my emotional, my sexual, my financial, my spiritual, and I'm going to be this and I'm going to take action towards that. And I'm going to build up this armor of self-love. That's when I'm going to experience the full abundance of life and love and everything there is out there. And I'm really grateful to have met you as well. And to find another sister in LA.
That's soon to be. I mean, I can't wait. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. I know I've benefited from just our chat right now, as well as everyone else. So thank you.
Thank you. If you enjoyed this episode, take a screenshot, tag me at Lisa Carmen Wang, and make sure you check out thebadbitchempire.com for events, courses, crypto, and other cool shit. Thanks for tuning in to The Bad Bitch Empire.